Hello everyone, this is Dr. Priya and welcome to Chapter 7 as we will talk about reproductive rights and some of the various aspects that go along with selecting a method that is best for you. This is a very long chapter. I'm going to try and breeze through it as quickly as possible because some of the information can be a bit redundant and also it's just not really that interesting. So instead of bore you for the next hour and a half, we're going to try and get through this in about two 15-minute segments of 30 minutes in total. Beginning with our basic principles of birth control. Really, that's anything that is essentially going to stop you from getting pregnant. If you don't want to have any more kids, then this is a method that will help prevent a lot of aggravation in the long run, especially if you want children but you're not quite ready. Maybe you want to wait for a while. Maybe you don't want to have any more. Maybe you want to adopt, or maybe there's just a variety of reasons why you choose to engage in sexual activity but you don't want to have any more kids. So we want to talk about ways to prevent unnecessary aggravation and fatigue and fiscal irresponsibility by being able to control certain aspects of our own bodies and our lives. And so there has been a long-standing debate over the differences between birth control and conception. And conception is essentially where we meet that moment of vitality where sperm and egg actually connect in the fallopian tube, and that for particularly religious reasons, and especially if you tend to vote more on the Republican side, this is where this group of individuals considers life to have begun at the point of conception. So when you hear that point of conception, that's actually what they're meaning. It's a viable egg and a viable sperm that are actually now connected, and the process of cell division can begin. Some of our basic principles. I feel like we're getting cut off there, so let me move this up just a bit there. Okay, so some of our basic principles are fertility, and that's if you're even able to have a child, and this can be a problem for both men and women. There's a large misconception that fertility or the lack of ability to have children is always on the woman's end, and a lot of the time is low sperm count for the man as well, but we'll talk about that coming up. And then we have a perfect use failure rate, and this is the number of pregnancies that are likely to occur each 100, and we usually measure things on a scale of 1 to 100 in the first year of use. So if it has a 0% fail rate, then we're looking at perfect use failure rate, and that's kind of what we really want that to be 0, where you are not the test dummy as far as it not working. So then we have a typical use failure rate, and that is actually the number of pregnancies that are likely to occur within that year between the first 100. So they're not the same thing. We hope that as we get closer to the number 0, there's just a lot more confidence in that particular method of birth control, but sometimes it works for some people and sometimes it doesn't, and there are a variety of different ways that we can look at birth control and what's going to be the most effective for you. So methods of birth control, there are a lot. Actually, there are so many different methods, and a lot of them have larger fail rates than the others. But we have barrier methods, and that is basically there is literally a barrier or a blockage, whether it is from the male side or the female side, that is preventing sperm from entering into the vaginal canal and fertilizing an ovum or an egg. And then there are hormonal methods, which are generally in the form of patches or an IUD or birth control pills or even shots. There are a lot of different ways to administer the hormonal methods, and these also allow you to introduce kind of a fake or synthetic type of hormone into the body to prevent ovulation. It allows for the thickening of the cervix or the cervical mucus to help discourage sperm from fertilizing an egg, and prevent also fertilized egg from implanting. And then we have permanent methods, and those are things such as surgical methods, i.e. tying your tubes, or semi-permanent methods, which are things like vasectomies, which can actually be reversed. Methods of birth control, continuing on, I already mentioned the IUD, and that is that's meant to interfere with sperm movement and egg fertilization. Some IUDs offer hormones as well. And we have the behavioral methods, and those can include the calendar method, where you are just choosing to not have intercourse between a certain period of time during your ovulation period. And that can actually be very, very effective if you are consistent with your cycles and you know when you ovulate. Then it can be very effective, and that way you don't have to continue taking a lot of birth control and synthetic hormones that you'll have side effects to. And some women can experience side effects from weight gain to bloating to puffiness, weakened hair, thinning hair, nausea, stomach problems. The list just goes on and on. So it really just depends on you as an individual. But pretty much every woman that I've known who has taken birth control has complained about weight gain, and sometimes even acne and secondary male sex characteristics such as starting to grow hair in areas that you normally would not grow hair in, for example, on the chin or underneath the nose. So barrier methods, looking at our most common method is, of course, the male condom. And this can be used with or without a spermicide. A spermicide is also just an added barrier or an added agent that helps to kill sperm in the event that the condom breaks or there was some leakage. So it has a great rate of prevention. It's in the low 80s. Part of that is because of improper use or the condoms breaking. There should be space at the tip to allow that reservoir to collect the sperm, but if it's too tight, it can break, and then that sperm can go into the woman's vaginal canal, and you can become pregnant. So some of that air usage, when used correctly, the air usage actually goes down significantly, but when used incorrectly, then we have around about an 82% chance of effectiveness, and that is not the highest. You probably don't want near a fifth of a chance for you getting pregnant if you are trying to avoid ending up with a child. So condoms do protect against some STDs. They don't protect against STDs that kind of have that skin-on-skin contact, like herpes and things like that. So you kind of have to be very careful about who you're with and kind of weigh those balances, because the hormonal methods don't protect against certain STDs either. And skin-to-skin contact STDs are very, very challenging and difficult, sometimes almost impossible to protect against. So you have to be cognizant of that as well. The female condom is much more challenging to insert. The rate of failure goes up. As we can see, it's slightly higher than a male condom, and of course this is statistically, but in practical usage, it's probably going to be closer to 25 to 30%. It's also not the most comfortable. It's not the most easy to administer, but it is, and it's also single use, just like the male condoms. It's loose fitting, so it's not tight. It can also help prevent STDs, of course, but even those that are associated with herpes. But remember, it's also, some of these are external warts, so you cannot actually prevent them if there is skin-to-skin contact. So it's also important for us to realize that no method of birth control is going to protect against all STDs. Coming to jellies, creams, and the like, most of these they act as spermicides that you don't need a prescription. You can buy them over the counter at pretty much any store, grocery store, Walgreens, CVS. And basically what they do is they kill sperm. It's a spermicide. It's primarily effective when it's used in conjunction with something else, such as a barrier method, which is a condom, female condom, a sponge, a ring. There's a lot of different methods, but they're not the most effective when they're used alone, because let's just face it, user error, and also spermicide is meant to discourage sperm. It's not meant to be a cure-all on its own. Also, some people have allergies. Some people have allergies to the medicine that's in the spermicide. Some people have allergies to the latex condom. And other people just don't know how to administer it right. It can be very messy, and that's probably not the most attractive thing to do when you're in the mood. You probably are not going to be jumping for joy over that model, but it is something that is a non-prescription, and it doesn't really have the hormones, so you don't have to worry about the long-term effects of it from continued use. As we move on, looking at the diaphragm with spermicidal jelly and cream. So this is also a barrier method with a spermicide. And a diaphragm is basically, it goes over the cervix, and so it prevents sperm from getting to the cervix, which can then get into the fallopian tubes and fertilize an egg. So it has to be fitted by a practitioner. The crazy thing is it's really still only single use, and some of them are a little bit longer. But you're not supposed to leave it in place for very long, otherwise you can get like toxic shock syndrome, similar to if you leave a tampon in for longer. It should be inserted several hours before you have sex with your partner. It's supposed to be used in conjunction with a spermicide as well. And it does offer protection like most of our barrier methods against certain STDs, but not all of them. Of course, there is a failure rate of, again, 12% compared with other barrier methods, because a diaphragm, when fitted correctly, is actually pretty effective. But keep it in mind, you're still around about the high 80th percentile. Some people don't want to take that risk, and medical practitioners look for a confidence ratio or a success rate of 98%. In medicine, we're talking about a 1 to 2% margin of error. So 88% doesn't seem that high in comparison to some of the other standards for confidence. And that's just another method. Once again, though, some people prefer this method when maybe your partner has low sperm count, and this would probably be a great alternative to you taking in prescription pills for an extended period of time. Cervical caps operate in a similar way to diaphragms, because the objective is to form a barrier over the cervix. It's supposed to, once again, fit over the cervix, and when used in conjunction with spermicidal jelly or cream, then it kills sperm as well as preventing the sperm from getting to the cervix in the first place. Once again, it has to be fitted by a practitioner several hours before intercourse, and it's not supposed to be left in for an extended period of time afterwards. The failure rate compared to other barrier methods, you're around about the 14% failure rate, so slightly a little bit more than your cervical, which one was before that, your diaphragm. So slightly a little bit more, and then it provides a small amount of protection or some amount of protection against STDs, keeping in mind that skin-to-skin contact STDs are also not something that we're going to have a large degree of control over. Then we come to the contraceptive sponge. It's again another barrier method. It doesn't require fitting, so it makes it attractive for women who are not able to get back and forth between a nurse practitioner or a medical practitioner. It lasts for an entire day, 24-hour period, and there's no need to reapply spermicide or put a new sponge in within that 24-hour period. Don't test it to go 36 hours. Some people are always trying to push, but it will lose effectiveness. And even though it lasts for 24 hours, the effectiveness does go down within that time period. So be cognizant of that. We have to be intelligent and always build in some error and understanding that certain things work better for a specific demographic than us. So if your partner has a really large sperm count, this probably ain't going to be the best method for you. As you can see, it's pretty soft and pliable, and it's actually an option for, I wouldn't say so much the younger population, millennials, Gen Zers, but I would say maybe more baby boomers and earlier generation Xers. As we look at hormonal methods instead of barrier methods, hormonal methods contain different types of hormones that we produce naturally in the body anyway, estrogen and progestin, and you would take these synthetic hormones and it would help you to either not ovulate, or it would help a fertilized egg to not implant into the uterine wall. And that latter part is a little tricky because medicines aren't technically, or at a high rate at least, proven to prevent implantation. They're better at preventing ovulation in the long run. Hormonal methods do not protect against STIs, but you can obtain them from getting an injection. They have the patches that you can put on your arm. You can take the pills. They do require a prescription. They can be expensive. They do have side effects, but there are also different variations of high dose, low dose hormones. You can have the ones where you can skip your cycle, where you only take it, they give you 3 months at a time. So there are a lot of different ways that you can administer hormonal contraceptives.